guys, it's Matthew. Welcome to another installment of the Deep Listening Sessions. Today, Nathan Paul Davis is going to be our speaker. Nathan is, a longtime friend of mine. He is an incredible performer, instrumentalist, composer, music producer, and just overall one of the most creative human beings that I've been able to work with and be friends with in my whole life. And Nathan and I have traveled the country together, played on numerous stages. We've been through school together. We've just shared a lot of life and experiences, and I'm just really honored to have him on the program today and to hear some deeper aspects of his story. We got into a lot of good stuff. From the way that, including the history of black performers in this country and black entertainers, and how that has affected our perception of black people in our culture. We got into the relationships between black people and the police and the complicated dynamics there. We got into good stuff about, just being able to detect our inherent biases and judgments about people. And then, one of my favorite points of this conversation was just how, Nathan was talking about how he just wants to be seen as himself. He just wants people to, hear him as he is. And this connects to the deeper human thing of how, we all just want to be seen as who we are. And I think that's an important thing to remember right now, as we're breaking down all these racial constructs and aspects of the racist culture. Is ultimately, we want to be creating a society where we can all just see each other as we are. We can feel a freedom to be as we are, to express ourselves as we are. And Nathan, just in the way that he lives and makes his art, is I think a very shining example of that. Someone who expresses himself as he is, and I definitely honor him as a person for that. So without further ado, enjoy this conversation with Nathan Paul Davis. Thank you. Okay, so we'll begin by just finding a comfortable seat, sitting up tall, closing the eyes. Feel the shoulders relax a little bit, feel the chest open. And then allow the breath to deepen. So as we get still and quiet, we'll just notice what's going on in the mind, the busyness, the chatter. And we'll take just a couple steps back from all that activity. Bringing ourselves more into a state of conscious presence, a state of being able to listen more deeply. So we'll take a few more breaths to access that space. We can remind ourselves that we are in this conversation tonight to be part of a shifting culture, a culture that is waking up to things that have been long ignored. We can renew our intention to be stepping up, showing up every day to shift the culture more towards real equality. So a few more deep breaths. We'll go ahead and open the eyes. And we'll give the floor over to our guest, Nathan Paul Davis,
Hey
aka.
guys, it's me, no secrets here. I'm awfully comfortable with these glasses and this hood on. Which Matt knows that this is pretty much how I always look. All the time. So you're seeing the real me. Um so I teach, I teach as well. I teach at a high school. I have a music history class. And I start the class out explaining to the kids the history of American entertainment. So a lot of people look at things like the Civil War and all the very serious things. But we all know that like propaganda and like you got your war posters and your videos, it's really brainwashing is mainly happens through entertainment. That's where one of the less, well, you got your psychological warfare and you got your, and then the actual just physical overtness. So I mean, it's so blatant and obvious. I don't think that's worth discussing. But if you go back into, all the way back into the mid 1800s, guess what the most popular form of American entertainment was? Minstrel shows. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this, minstrel shows are shows where white men would, and the term would be called blacken up. They would take a piece of burnt charcoal, or burnt cork, grease, or whatever, and make their face all black, put red lipstick on, make their lips as big as they could, and just be like, a complete over exaggeration of black people. And this was the most popular form of entertainment in America while slavery was happening. So, if you know your history, were most white people slave owners back then? No. Were most white people rich back then? No. So, for those white people that weren't on plantations and didn't own any slaves, how did they learn about black people? If most black people were on plantations and not freely roaming cities and the streets, you probably learned about them through entertainment and when a minstrel show came through town. So this is kind of how the brainwashing begins. You've seen, what are black people like, mommy, or whatever. They go to the show and the dude's acting like a complete buffoon, acting all crazy. So this is, I think, the overall population's biggest introduction, physical, live in front of your face. And although these aren't even real black people, but this is how your imagination of how to just look at these people starts to happen. And this is why I think music is so great, because if you look at the history of black people in America, the way we broke through and started to prove our humanity, which I don't know why we know why it needed to be proven. It didn't need to be, but thus we were there. Is through our music. One of the first slave songbooks written, it was either 1865 or 1867, substantial book. Their case for proving why they don't understand why black people are slaves is because they're saying, look at the genius of these people. They explain our humanity and understood it through music. That was one of the earliest ways of how, we show we're actually quite genius and brilliant and not half human or three-fifths or whatever, like the science book said back then, right? And so not we were being made fun of and telling the kids and the youth and white culture how to look at us through minstrel shows and then mocking us, but at the same time we were starting to, show our brilliance through our music. And early on, you start to see these things fuse. And then you start to see black people actually be in minstrel shows. And even they would put on black shoe polish. And it was became quite confusing for some time. So I say all that to say, I think one of the reasons black people feel like they're not taken seriously while we're not taken serious, is because I think we've fallen under the umbrella as a item of entertainment in this country. Our hardships and everything, it's a form of entertainment because I think that was the general population's introduction understanding of us as entities mainly for entertainment. Um, and so there's a lot to that. And if I keep talking like this in this kind of monotone voice, we all might fall asleep. You guys can just interject.
Nathan, could I say something about that real quick?
Yeah.
That was a big point of opening for me when I started to learn more about that perspective that you just shared. I think I grew up not really realizing that the way black people have been portrayed in entertainment in America was just a different form of how a white supremacist culture has exploited black people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a
Exactly.
it's like this different, more glorified form of exploitation that then brainwashes us to see black people in a certain way.
Psychological, warfare, man. I mean, that's the best way to control a group of people, control the masses, keep their mindsets is when paint people in a certain light. And, propaganda, entertainment, music is a very powerful way to do that. In the early 20s, when blues was starting to become popular, you know, the people that were first starting the labels were very attracted to the idea of like this kind of renegade outlaw blues player. I forget this cat's name, but this one guy, he was really clean, real well spoken, like suburban black dude, a great blues singer. And they didn't want to sign him because they didn't want to sell that image for black people. They wanted to sell a gangster or a criminal. So they would even go to prisons, looking for a dude who might have murdered or killed somebody to give a record contract. So there's also that. So like when it like for instance, let's say you got a whole family reunion, your family big, 100 people in it. Out of all those people in your family, one of them's probably off, right? Somebody's probably got something's not right with uncle, whatever. And so with that being said, when you now let's say somebody comes to the family and says, I need a representative from your family, and they go and find the craziest person in your family. It's family, it's all love, but we don't want to send our craziest uncle out to represent the whole family, right? That's kind of what it's like. Like, wait, they going and looking for the oddest, most weirdest, just like, they're trying to make the abstract popular, or the not the abstract, something that doesn't occur as often as it may seem. Like a lot of the famous rappers and people, they have a very much sort of gangster sort of, they kind of had a limelight, and a lot of them don't even really fit that or come from that, but it's like, that's what sells. Black criminals, it's very attractive, and that's how it's always been.
So was there a time, like times throughout your development as a musician, as a performer, as a composer, where certain iconic black artists that made a big influence on you, were there moments where you kind of saw through this whole thing and maybe saw how they were selected in this way, or how media was portraying them, and like how,
Well,
if you saw that, how did it affect you?
well, that's a tricky one because obviously early on in life I understood a lot of these things some people are just becoming aware of. I've been aware of for quite some time, but within the nuances of the entertainment world, I had not made those connections until much later in life. That's way harder to tell because if somebody tells you this is who I am, this is what you do, so all right, that's who you is, that's what you do. But and then, being a musician myself and really kind of not being too far removed from some people up top. Like I don't personally know them, but somebody I know knows them. It's just like sometimes a lot of it was just me being told stuff, and I'm just like, Oh, and then you start to connect the dots. So I mean, that's really hard to see. That's really hard to tell. Like
Mm-hmm.
what Kanye was. What they say he did something with he talking about he's never wearing the Make America Great Again hat. He's never wearing that hat again or something. So I don't know. Was it a ploy? Was he? I don't know. Like rich famous people think different. They're in a different position. They were playing a game. They're playing a game that I don't. I'm not on the same board game as them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess maybe a more appropriate question would be like, in your role as a black musician, composer, entertainer, as you know, especially in the Northeast Ohio area, you know, Nathan Paul at this point is like a lot of people know who you are. They know projects you've been a part of. They're familiar with your work. You're in the papers. You're online. How do you feel like this whole um, role that you're in is linked to this history of black entertainers in the way that you described it?
How do I answer? How do I feel like I fit into that? Like how I'm connected to
Do
it?
you feel trapped by it, or do you feel like you can feel
Oh,
trapped
oh,
by
I've
the
definitely.
constructs of the history, or do you feel like you can be yourself and be accepted in a predominantly white culture?
I feel. I feel more trapped as and socially as a black person as opposed to musically. I've always like, but I will say, especially being here in in Cleveland, which I view to be a more conservative, kind of black conservative here. It's not too liberal, not a lot of like black hippie experimenting people. That's not like a common overwhelming thing here.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so it's just like, just like if you talk this way, you're not black. If you do this, you're not that. If you do that, you're not that and that. And then I guess that does kind of spill over into the music, you know, who you hire and all these different things, this and that. But I'm mature enough now where I'm past all those things, It's just like the number one thing I realized, people could say this or that, but if you can still get shot for looking a certain way, or if you can still rest in peace, if you can get George, if you have the potential to be in the same position as George Floyd for the same reasons as George Floyd, then it don't matter how you talk or how you move. If you look the way you look, you just might get took. So that when I came to that realization is it doesn't matter what anybody says. I mean, it's what can happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, how does that leave you feeling though in the role that you're in as artist in this
Well,
community?
you always happen to humor everybody. I mean, part of being black is you just, like I said, it goes back to what the very first thing. You just feel like you always have to entertain everybody. You feel like you got to entertain your own people, make them feel safe. Man, I'm you. I'm not whitewashed. Just cool. Sometimes you got to overextend yourself because black people kind of paranoid. I know I am lightweight. You just don't really. It's just things don't seem right. And then on the
Can you say
same,
more about that?
what you say?
Could you say more about that?
Well, like, when you think about something like the Tuskegee experiments, these men had syphilis and the doctors knew and they weren't treating it or doing anything and they were just letting them have it, so they could kind of monitor them throughout life to see what happens to people like that. It's been a while since I read that story. I don't know if I got the details exactly verbatim right, but look up the Tuskegee experiment. But that's a very popular one where scientists are secretly and unknowingly, unbeknownst to the patients, they're experimenting on them. So that's so a lot of black people, and for that reason, are kind of not chomping at the bit to go to the doctor because historically they experiment on us because we're seen as expendable. Once again, it's just entertainment. Entertainers come and go, right? So yeah.
A friend of mine we were messaging back and forth, and he said something recently about like because of the history, because of things like what you've mentioned, that it propagates this existence in the Black American of this underlying fear and anxiety that you're living with all the time, because you never know when like the next thing is just going to happen to you from a result of the system, whether it be,
Right.
through police or,
I
the
mean, I'm
court.
not quite that on edge. I'm not like looking over my shoulder every sec. I'm not like paranoid in that way. Um, Not like every hour, every second, but you do kind of have a higher sense of there is a higher sense of paranoia that you have to operate if you really want to survive as a Black person. Be all the way honest with you. It's healthy to have a. I just have to be a little more paranoid than you, because people unknowingly are doing racist things too. So you have to be, and when you look back into your life, once you become an older Black man, and like growing up, grew up around a lot of different people. I had foreign exchange students, so it was white, Black everywhere. But just because I had that when I met other white people didn't mean they had that. When I look back and I think about some of those friendships or some of those interactions, they were inadvertently definitely like, like putting me on a pedestal because of my Blackness, me kind of being a form of entertainment. They didn't even realize it, but it's like, oh, Black dude, can you do this? Can you? And then, I was kind of playing into it. And when you look back, it's like, oh, man. So, yeah, you kind of got to be like super hyper aware, because during those times, I was probably reinforcing some stereotypes I didn't need to be. We were all playing a role, right? So it's kind of important to be a little more paranoid than the average privileged person.
Mm. So like, something I've been thinking about um, a lot is like just shifting culture, right? Because now we're in a time of everybody's waking up to this stuff more. How do we shift the culture? So like, what's the question I want to actually get at here? If we wanted to, let's talk in the just like in the music performance situation and how you're perceived as an artist. If you want to be separate from that role of this historically loaded role of Black entertainer,
Right.
how do you want to be able to, what kind of platform do you want to be able to express yourself, be heard, showcase your art, showcase your voice, that is a cultural shift away from this, minstrel show legacy of, putting you on that weird pedestal?
Well, hmm, it's kind of a loaded question because I don't really have control over that. I don't have
Yeah.
control over how people view me or what they want to write. But most
You
people
have
aren't even.
control over it, but I think it's like now is a great time for us to reimagine, where like, because we know what it is now, and right now it's still really problematic and loaded with this bad history. So like having a positive imagining of what it could be, I think is like could be a great thing to do right now, and something that people would love to hear from you.
Well, I mean, for me, I guess I would just be, for lack of a better term, I would just be white at that point. I wouldn't have to think about my color if I had that kind of freedom, I guess.
So
If
like
I
be
could just be free of it, I would have to be a different person. I would have to you have a different look, or or we'd have to fast forward into 300 years when this country's finally figured it out. And then by then, nobody will look like me anyway.
So, like, would you say you would want to be like in your platform as an artist? You would want to be seen as beyond your skin color.
Well,
I guess the
of
simpler
course.
way of what I'm asking is like, how do you want to be seen as an artist in the context of today that's
Well,
more free from these past paradigms?
I think the way I think the fact that I wanted to be known as anonymous going into this kind of explains a lot about how I want to be seen in general. I want to have more of like it's kind of one of those things where it's like I kind of want to be like Paul Bunyan, like a folklore kind of legend where you think of a name and you think of a story, but you don't think of you kind of want to kind of transcend. I don't know. I just want to be in folklore. I'm kind of goofy like that. But that would be like I'm pretty sure I saw a book one time. I'm pretty sure Paul Bunyan looked white in there, and it's maybe a lumberjack giant sort of fellow. What I don't know. But look, I'm just saying, like, you know what I'm saying? Just like Nathan Paul. Who was he?
Yeah.
Just the spirit. Like Chris Anderson years ago, he would always say, he's like, man, I just love hearing your spirit when you play.
Mm,
I said, whoa. So yeah, more like that. You just close your eyes. And tell me what do you hear?
mm. So let's go into that Nathan Paul story a little bit, man.
Oh yeah.
What are some of the key experiences or things you've encountered throughout your life that have brought you to this place now of you just want people to hear your spirit?
Well, I wish I had a long answer. I usually have a long answer. That one's simple. I've just there's a tape of me when I was about 4 years old. My father said, "What you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "I want to be Nathan." So I just think that's the way I'm wired. I think it would be like this regardless.
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't have. That's not a great answer.
that's fine, man. But I mean that gets at something very pure underneath all this complexity we're experiencing right now. Is like at a young age you felt that you knew you just wanted to be you.
Or maybe I didn't understand the question.
But like fundamentally it's like whatever skin color we are, whatever racial background we're coming from, like we all just want the ability to the permission from society to have us be ourselves in whatever form that's going to be,
Absolutely,
and not be
absolutely.
discriminated against for who we are.
Yeah, it's these roles you kind of feel like, especially for me, and we put this pressure on ourselves as Black people. You kind of feel like you have to perform to some extent. You kind of playing this, I don't know, like this role. It's just like if you don't do this, because there's all these titles: a strong Black man, Black love. Look at this beautiful Black couple, which I love all those things. But at the same time, it's kind of just like because it's so like this it's just because there's so much pushback. It's because there's so much oppression. I feel like in some ways we're overextending ourselves here because like I said in the beginning, there's not one way to be Black, yet there are but not everything that's Black is popular. So you're only getting a certain sort of thing, and then people sort of, oh, I thought that was Black. It's just like, no, there's like it's just like we're humans, we're regular people, different. It's different on this street than that street. Your father might have been Muslim. Your father might have been a pastor. It's just like it's just like normal, whatever, whatever. But because of the oppression and the pushback, you kind of got to overextend yourself because you feel like you're drowning in people telling you what you're not or how much you're not worth. You know,
Mhm.
overcompensation.
Yeah.
It's not even overcompensation. You just try not to drown in the negatives.
The maybe like the constructs of Black, the constructs you're trying that maybe people are trying to fit into of Black that are more acceptable, so that maybe I don't know they'll be less oppressed or something.
Man, it's just like there's so many things, man. It's just crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I love about like Holbrook and Flacco's like Free Black Project is like that's the
Mm,
whole idea behind it, and it goes beyond like
yeah,
a black idea or a racial idea at all. It's like at a human level, we all deserve the fundamental right to be who we are as unique individuals.
right. To follow up to that, it's just unfortunately, I mean, when did the science books finally start saying black people are actually human? Like, wasn't too long? Like, was that less than 200 years ago? I don't know the exact date on that one.
I
Probably less. So that's see, that's that argument. See, we're talking about a humanity thing, but like people that look like me haven't even always actually physically been considered human. That's what blows my mind. That's what I can't get. I was just like, dang, not even human though.
yeah.
Whew, not even human, really? All right. It almost makes you feel like it's like, man, maybe it's the opposite. What? No, but yeah.
It's funny you say that, man, because on my way home, I've been listening to that book by Ibram X Kendi, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and he was talking about in college how he went through this real anti-white phase, and he had stumbled upon this theory that all white people were aliens,
I've thought that. I've definitely thought that before.
and he got like way into that for a while, you know.
That is hilarious.
You should write a song about that, man.
Ooh, that would be funny. Oh man. Here's the thing about that. It's just like you gotta be able to laugh at that. You should not be getting offended by me doing that. I mean, just given I was just like, look, if y'all can scientifically say my people wasn't human for hundreds of years, I can laugh for 3 minutes and say y'all aliens. It's only fair. Give
Yeah,
me give me that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's part of the beauty of like the artist's role in society, though, is like the terrain is a little bit more lawless in the way that you can play with it. You know,
Yeah.
if someone's gonna do that, I think it's got to be you, man.
We'll see. I don't know if I'm gonna follow through with that.
One question I wanted to ask you, man, because we haven't necessarily talked about this very much in all of our years of playing together, but uh, you know, we've heard Steve Miller talk about like different ways he experienced, or Chris talk about different ways they've experienced racism in in college, right, and in
Hmm.
education, going through the educational system. And I was curious if there's anything you wanted to say about that and your experience going through school.
Um, I mean, I didn't feel it was different than any other experience in school because I was such a bad student throughout school that by the time I got to college, well, you gotta understand something about me. Like I was like very, very, very. I was the worst student you ever met. I mean, I'm pretty sure I slept throughout all 4 years of high school. Almost didn't finish my freshman year. I had to play catch up. I started school on academic probation. And then I turned it around. I got on the dean's list. Got my degree. I finished everything. I've read a million books. No, I'm playing. I'm just saying, like, because of that and how bad I was at school. I mean, like the worst student of all time. I mean, I really shouldn't have even graduated from high school. It's really a miracle. So with that being said, there's no way I could have ever really felt that so overtly, being because I was black, because I started there on academic probation. All my main professors knew I was a very troubled student that didn't have good work ethic. And so if anything seemed overter in my face, I just felt it was because I, unbeknownst to them, having nothing to do with them, personally made the choice to be a terrible student. So if anything, I was just like, oh, they just like, they got to push me a little harder because I'm like, because I'm like a little worse of a student than others. Was the kind of my mindset going in because of my past. It was like that bad that it's just like any scolding I deserved. Like this was going to college was the biggest second chance ever. And that has nothing to do with me being black. So
I actually have a question, if you don't mind.
please.
So do you think your experience as a student helps you as an educator now relate to your students?
Well, I relate to my students because they are me. So my school is mainly young black kids, and yeah, they all just act the same way I did in school. It's just like a bunch of different versions of me. So no, it's my that yeah, college wouldn't have given me that. That's more connected to just where I can. I'm just teaching kids that grew up the same as me.
Mm.
So I relate on a more like just personal level.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Do you feel like that, like approaching it from that level allows you to like connect at a deeper place with them, and then you see them put more of themselves into the music?
I think that has to do with since we all relate to each other, we also don't see a point in pointing out how amazing that is either. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's extremely normal.
Mm.
Because you always around, like there's nothing odd about it. This isn't like this huge opportunity. This never happens. It's like, I mean, this is yeah. I mean, these kids. I'm not their only black teacher or anything. That's not a rarity where I teach. So it's fairly normal. So me being here's how it works. If a white teacher or a white substitute comes in, if they move a certain way and the kids are a little mean or they want to call them corny or something, they'll come at them because of that, because they're just rude and they got crazy jokes. All right. So like for me, if they come at me, they're gonna come at you regardless. It's just with me, they're not gonna come at me because of my blackness or anything. It's gonna be something else. Maybe they didn't like my shoes. Mr. Davis, your shoes is corny today. As opposed to like a white teacher, they might ask some mean questions like, how you make your cornbread, Miss Dunphy? They just might ask some stupid, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So no, just each individual teacher has something different the kids can pick on. So that's up to the teacher.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, another thing I've been thinking about a lot recently, man, is the different places, like my ability as like a white male in America to go around different places freely, without worry of being bothered or getting in trouble or anything. And I know we've traveled a lot and played music together. We've been down south. We've been to a lot of different places. And I'm curious about some of the places that we've gone, or just your experiences traveling as a musician, where our experiences would be very different as a white man and a black man.
I just feel like man, it's just so common to me. It's hard to like isolate those events. It's just like, I mean, this is not like a rare special thing to me, you gotta understand. So like I'm trying to think like, I mean, there's like everyday examples. There's like everyday examples. Like where we went, I'm trying to think. Trying to remember where was that. It was a little funny. where was this? Were we in St. Louis? Did we play there?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, we played there, right?
I think so.
See, I read it was a I could tell it was a little weird there. It's just you just like it's just like a certain look you get and stuff. And then like Tom's playing in like Wesley Bright when we were down south, and then Mr. Wesley Bright getting pulled over, and he's a very very, very sober. Actually, he's actually a great driver. Now that I think about it. So like just getting pulled over because it's just like we don't usually see Ocon in these parts, sort of thing. You can just feel it on you. But I mean, like I said, since I'm super hyper, like kind of paranoid and aware, I typically can kind of see trouble before it's coming. Like, say for instance, about zero point 0.5 miles up, I see a cop car driving slow, right? And I see a convenience store right here, but I don't need to go to the convenience store at all. If I see that, I'm probably gonna go in the convenience store, maybe buy like a stick of gum, just because that just looks goofy to me. I was like, what is that? I don't know. I just don't get it. So I just go somewhere else. So I like live my life kind of like that. Or if I just see a cop walking around just looking and I'm far enough away where he may not notice me yet, I go in a completely opposite direction. I'm very, very hyper aware of that sort of thing.
So I mean, to me, it says it's like you like that's just become so everyday and ingrained
Every day, it don't matter. I don't,
that you
yeah.
gotta like spend energy, changing your path of just your normal daily
Yeah. I
affairs.
mean, I'm a legal tax-paying citizen. I don't have any I'm just like, just walking because I want to get some air and I like to walk. And yeah, yeah. Or if I see a cop and if I'm walking down the street and there's like a little park down there, I'll kind of like get on my phone so it looks like I have something to do, so it doesn't look like I'm aimless. Because they'll mess with you if you look aimless. So I just always kind of look like I try to look as important regardless of how I'm dressed. I just try to have an expression of, oh my gosh, I have so many things to do. I'm so busy. Oh, I'm such a busy citizen. You can't bother me. I'm too busy for that. I try to just have that look whenever I'm around Cubs. Just look like a really busy, I'm in a hurry. I got so many responsibilities to do right now. I have so much going on. So yeah, every time. If I go on a walk today and I see a cop, I'm definitely gonna do that. Pull out my phone, just look, try not to make eye contact. But sometimes you can get a feel for it. Sometimes it depends on how I'm feeling that day. I might look at them and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And just there's days where you don't want to like say nothing and avoid eye contact, and other days you look them and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Because eye contact looks suspicious sometimes, and other times no eye contact looks suspicious. I'm trying to read these cats.
Yeah, but it's like either way, there's some sort of heightened awareness that you have to have just kind of not to get bothered.
Well, I've had that experience. I've been put in handcuffs and in a car. I made eye contact too many times. See, I learned from that experience. I looked at them too many times, and I just looked mad suspicious. They pulled me over, put me in handcuffs. Then they read the description of the person they were looking for, and I didn't fit it at all. And then they let me out. They said, well, "We can give you a ride home." I said, "So I can show up to my father's house in a cop car?" No, thank you. So ever since then, I learned it's just like just stay away. Regardless, this cop told me, he said only guilty people run. I said, oh no. I said only guilty people run. Okay, that's the mindset y'all got. Okay, so Cleveland Heights police officer. I don't understand that mindset. I said no, scared people run. Scare people running. I don't know how long is it. How long has it been? I don't know who's all here. How's everybody doing? Did I talk your ear off?
No, that was, I mean, that point just kind of hit deep to me, man, because like it shows you how differently people perceive law enforcement here depending on what part in society they occupy.
Well, I mean, I've just had enough negative experiences where I've been messed with for absolutely no reason. So it's like, yeah, you gotta stay on alert. Like, come on, man, George Floyd. What was it? 8 some minutes. Dude had his knee in his neck. That's evil. That's pure evil, man. Like I ain't trying. No, man, I ain't trying to mess with that. I'm just trying to stay alive long enough to make sure this don't keep happening. So like, man, I might flip the script, kid, stay on a swivel, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm very cautious. Look, like, and I teach my young black men students. I tell them, you go in a store, take your hands out your pocket. They'll think you're stealing something. Don't look like this when you're walking. Keep your eyes straight ahead and look like you have a destination. All you got to do is put a hood on, put your hands in your pocket as a black brother walking to the store and you look suspicious. Somebody that might tune into this later, if they stay to the end to hear this, they probably gonna see me with the hood and glasses on and think I'm on some trash. Watch, it's just psychological conditioning.
Right, because it comes back to your point that like that view of a black man has been really conditioned into our society to the point where it actually presents an actual danger to your life, where
Yeah,
where if you want to wear a hoodie and sunglasses and walk around, you have absolutely have the right to do that as part of the free person that you are, you know.
absolutely. But it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's been going on for years. There's all sorts of subliminal hate messages and everything. Look, if your supposed truth or if your worldview encourages you to not understand somebody else, if your point of view encourages you to be dismissive, and you think you got the lowdown on somebody else's story, and you didn't grow up the same as them, you fried. It's just like you can't tell somebody else how they feel.
Right.
That's why this dude, Chris Cole's Nine Lives thing, that dude that came in and shot up all those
Dylan.
black people. No, you don't need to say his name. I don't acknowledge these people. His name is dead. He don't. That's an evil spirit that exists. It's just like, but what was it? I lost my train of thought. Dang gone it. He was what was I saying about that with the Chris Cole's
You're
Nine?
talking about if people, are if you approach others and just by looking at them assume a bunch
Right.
about them, how dangerous that can be.
Well, right. Like, I know for a fact that what I'm saying is, even as messed up as it is, I know that he believed in his heart that black people are going around raping, killing, and stealing and ruining supposed, I don't even, ruining white culture. This is his premise, correct? For killing all those people? That we were ruining it. Yeah,
Right.
that's what he said, I'm pretty sure. So I believe that he believes that. Right? That's how heavy my theory stands up. When people tell you they feel a certain way, believe it. If you got all these millions of black people unified telling you the same thing, it's not like we all got each other's phone number. We didn't get on the phone and say, hey, y'all, so I got this crazy way to start tricking all these white people. We gonna get them so good. That didn't happen. Like millions of us feel the same way. How is that? Different parts of the United States, different age range, different upbringings, yet we all relate to this. I mean, anybody would tell you you'd be a fool to completely ignore that. That's substantial. That's called emotional intelligence. You're gonna ignore a million voices crying out and say it's not real, it's made up. Something's wrong with you. If you ignoring that, you don't ignore a baby when it cries.
Yeah. Well, I totally hear you, man. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about this, is of just, how fundamentally wrong it is to deny someone's experience when they share how they're feeling about their experience to you, and you deny it. It's one of the most demeaning and hurtful
Absolutely.
things that can be done. And part of this cultural shift that's happening, I'm hoping that as a society we can get to a place where we can hear and validate each other's feelings a little bit more, and not automatically downplay other people's stories because of what we think about them.
Right. I mean, the viewpoint. Look, if you're a white supremacist and you stand by that and you're proud, obviously I don't support that, but I totally believe that you really believe everything you're saying. I believe that you believe, all that. So
Right.
then at that point, the method of understanding somebody else is saying, well, why do you believe that? And then they're going to tell you a story or share some information, and either it's going to make sense or it's not going to totally make sense. And then you can, based upon that, determine whether or not their viewpoint is based upon a truly informed decision, or if it's more or less fear based.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have Sarah ask a question here. She has her hand up. Sarah.
Please do. I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think it was really powerful how you were describing your experiences with the police, and especially when you're saying that. I think what struck a chord with me was that scared people run, right?
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if you've heard of the term fight, flight, freeze.
No, I haven't.
So it's a trauma response, and I'm a trauma therapist.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and so everyone has different responses to trauma, and they're the three F's. And so just based on your past experiences, anyone can at any certain point in time can react differently. Some people might freeze, some people might fight, and some people might run. And we all have different ways of responding with all the adrenaline and our amygdala responses. And so just especially because of all the history that Black people have had to endure, all the traumatic things that have happened in this country, I just really empathize with that. And I mean, I've had some, instances with the police myself, but so I just feel like it would be amplified as a person of color. I couldn't imagine having to, endure that. And I think it'd be, about 10, obviously like 10 times worse. So,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know your experience. I wasn't there. You could have had a really bad day. I don't know.
It's just something minor. But now, I was gonna say, I myself am like a little leery of police as well. But I can't imagine how it'd be every time now I stop to think of, okay, if I were a person of color, how would I feel like being pulled over by the police? So I just wish that more people, more white people would kind of empathize with that and kind of look at the history, and think about how that experience of when they think about people running from the police, when they think about people resisting arrest, how is that person feeling in that moment? And that everybody has these types of responses based on their past history, that they might be thinking of, they might be having those traumatic responses in that moment.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I mean,
just based on, like you said, those fear-based.
totally fear-based. I mean, so, but see, that's what will free us too. Because in the reverse side, if you're white, like somebody like that cat who shot up all those Black people, he's convinced himself that Black people are evil, this, and that. It goes both ways. It's just one perception might be a little more based in reality than the other. where people
Yeah.
have these very violent reactions, yeah, to fear or confusion, or so we got to clear the air then, right?
Right. Well, yeah, that person obviously had some serious mental health issues,
Definitely.
on a different spectrum.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
maybe that was too
the
drastic of an example, but I would like to
right.
remind people.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know where his place of hatred was coming from. It's extremely sad.
Oh, he
Um,
hated black people
yeah,
specifically. He went on record.
right, right. But where he learned that from?
Probably from America, one of the
Yeah,
presidents, probably.
where and we know that racism is taught. Where he learned that from, and whether it was from his parents, whether it was from the culture in general. But it's obviously a systemic. It's obviously a cultural problem as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Sarah,
But
you raised a really good point. And for our listeners who will be tuning into this on YouTube after, is like, I think one of the most important things for white Americans to be doing right now is just self-educating about the history of policing in the country, so that we have further fuel to be an active part of changing how the police operate right now. That's been like one of the more exciting things about this movement right now, is that like people are really for real examining how the police should be operating in our society at a root level. Like we're actually reevaluating that.
Well, they want more people. Well, the standard has to be higher, like you don't it should be, you got to be really educated and have a lot of tolerance and be socially aware to, especially if you're going to be policing a neighborhood you're not from. It's just like, well, why are these kids doing that? Why are this? Oh, because their dad died a month ago, and the mom he was paying for it, now and then she's in debt, so she leaves the kids at home all day because she can't get anybody because this and that, and then some outsider comes, and then I don't know. It's just, what's that post, Matt? Remember what I was talking about the other day? You can't punish poverty, and
Yeah, that would
I
be
gotta
a great
find.
thing to read up, man, if you can find that.
No, it's right here. I got it. Easy. Poverty deserves compassion, not punishment. But now, when we look at the example of the neighborhood, if a cat comes and he steals eggs and bread and milk, I don't think he should be punished. He's clearly starving, hungry. So the way you properly deal with that is you ask him what his situation is, offer him a job or something. But it's just like, if he got to steal eggs and bread, like there's people in jail for black people in jail for years for just stealing like stuff like that.
Yeah, but I don't think we should, not to interrupt, but I don't think we should punish based on like what they're stealing. Like he could buy a lot of milk and eggs with a TV that he took off your wall and pawned. Like I don't necessarily think like getting so specific with a crime is going to be helpful for anybody. Because that's what I would see. Like, how can I carry out something that will help my family so quickly? Like, I'm not going to gently carry home this carton of eggs.
Right. No, I think my point is, what I'm saying is, I was giving an example of poverty, and I was just saying the proper treatment should not be to put him in jail. That was all I was saying. That was my.
Mm-hmm.
And
We
then the
need
next.
more mental health. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the
And well,
other.
and compassion, and police don't get that kind of education. And
Right, which is why I think the
training.
education should be higher. The next thing it says here, addiction needs treatment, not a jail sentence. Mental illness requires care, not a cage. Decriminalize human pain. Invest in people, not in prisons. And you guys, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary called 13th, talking about the 13th Amendment. And it just kind of tells you about the prison system and how, it's, I don't know if this statistic is still true, but back when I was in high school, over 50% of the jail population was Black men. And really for petty, stupid crimes. And so, basically people are punished, like it says, decriminalize human pain. I don't think I can say that word. Decriminalize. There we
Well, at least
go. Did it.
they've at least changed the laws between, the cocaine versus crack cocaine.
Oh, that law was crazy. It didn't make no
Yeah, that was
sense.
insane. Yeah.
Insane.
Um,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's a business, especially private prisons. They're making lots of money. So, you gotta keep
Yeah.
it full.
Yeah, I mean, about that, the law you just mentioned, I mean, one thing that I'm starting to understand a lot more is just how much racist policy has been put into place that has allowed for, these racist power actions to continue in our society. And if we want to start undoing these things, like, we have to get a lot more active in political processes, to find candidates that are gonna, remove these racist policies that make it easier to criminalize Black Americans.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, it's kind of a daunting thing to think about, because at this point I basically have like no faith in our political system. but,
I
but
don't have any comment on that one. I don't know.
yeah, but it's my hope that with this uprising that has happened, we're going to start to see, maybe some more candidates at like the grassroots level that are going to be, putting some attention on things like that.
Hmm. I mean, does anybody have any like weird or curious questions? I mean, there's a plethora of things to talk about, but I don't.
I have a weird one.
All right, here we go.
Okay. So, with a lot of the things that I've been reading, some people are saying, you don't appropriately say Black when you're referring to a culture if you're white because you can't appreciate it. But then other people say, by saying person of color, it like strips that person's identity. Like, a person of color could be a Black man, or a person of color could be Latino, like,
Or they could be Indian.
or they could be Indian, they could be whatever. So my question is, what is your preferred thing to be called? Like, do you like Black? Do you like person of color? Do you like African American? Or do you not feel like that you associate with
I
any?
mean, honestly, like as a general broad term, I think Black is more or less the community's chosen word to identify with. Just based, I don't speak for every Black person, but if you look at like, I mean, Black Lives Matter. It doesn't say African American Lives Matter. It
Right.
doesn't say people of color lives. So I just think it seems that my community has chosen the word Black. I think that's overall. You might get some rarities. I ain't Black, but majority of us, that seems to be the accepted term at this point in history. So you white, I'm Black. It's just that's where we're at. Because I mean, just like Barack Obama was African American. His dad was African. It's just like at one point, somebody was from Africa, but it was so long ago that it's just like my family been in America for generations and generations. I'm just Black American. I'm just like my brother. Got your brothers, got your sisters, got your mothers, got your fathers.
I do understand what you're saying though, Heather, is like, sometimes when I'm referring to Black Americans as Black, or Black people, or Black man, Black woman, yeah, sometimes I feel unsure if that term is disrespectful in some kind of way.
I mean, it does feel a little funny, you know, to me too.
Yeah.
It feels a little funny to me too. But this was an issue back in the turn of the century. NAACP and people like you know, Frederick Douglass addressed these issues. What are we to call ourselves now? At one point, it was X people, or I mean, there was a lot of options. I think that's actually been a historical thing. You can go and read articles about that. We've been, and then you know, like you look at Malcolm X, his last name was X, but like, yeah, this has been quite a confusing thing. Us trying to figure out what term we should be referred to that we would like and feel comfortable with as a whole. I don't know. That's been a ongoing debate, honestly. But like I said, they say Black Lives Matter, so I guess that's the most accepted term. That's the safest term. I mean, African American sounds cooler. Just African. That sounds raw. But you know, like ain't nobody gonna be mad if you say that either. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just be ready to get corrected, my white friends. Just be tolerant.
Oh
with
no,
the
I think it's
corrections.
time for us
Just be
to
ready,
like
just for
be
people to tell
comfortable
you.
with being wrong.
Yeah, just be ready to get corrected a bunch. It's all about how you say it. If you say, well, I was talking to a black person, if you say it like that, probably not the vibe.
Right.
Black.
Yeah. It's time for, you know, collectively white folks to step up our humility and respect just in the way that, you know, we approach this whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good time to kind of start wrapping up a little bit. Nathan, or do you have any closing stuff or any other closing questions?
I'll just close with this, and if it leads somewhere else for a few seconds, I'll do that. But I know a lot of people, when you have these conversations and you talk about struggling, I know some people naturally take offense because you feel like you're downplaying their struggles and that life hasn't been hard, you know, and that's not the case. But what I want to say is, if we don't have the same opportunities, we don't have the same dispositions either. Systematically speaking, I suppose, because some people argue, well, you know, we all have our problems. We're all human. It's just like, you know, like trying to lump everybody into one category. But it's just like, unless we're getting the same exact opportunities and social treatment, it's not possible for us to share the same dispositions. I think this is a huge error with some people. They want to lump it in. It's just, I'm not saying you don't have problems. I'm not saying your life isn't the crappiest thing ever. What I'm saying is we don't share the same disposition because we are not afforded the same, you know, type of respect in society.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clarification.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to understand right now is that, like, you know, especially in the conversations I've been having about, you know, white privilege with, you know, maybe some of my friends that don't get it as much, is like what white privilege is not an invalidation of personal struggle. It's just recognizing the fact that white people are the default beneficiaries of the system designed by white people.
Right.
And that for black people and other people of color in the country, you guys have not been brought to the same equal level in the playing field over here. And we need to see that and change it. Now's the time to change it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just like don't make a spectacle. Like don't put, like, you don't need to start dating black people to understand, you know, like just don't make a spectacle. Don't put us on a pedestal. Don't make us your form of entertainment. Don't make us your science experiment. Don't make us your thought experiment. Don't make us your social experiment. Don't make us anything. Just let us be. Right? That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and just honor you as you are, you know?
Yeah. It's real simple. I don't really like this kind of attention personally. That's why I came in this anonymous. I'm just trying to make some music and talk to cool people. I don't know. It's simple.
Yeah. Well, man, so I've been closing each of these out with a little bit of, more meditative time. So, we can just kind of absorb everything and, a lot of the good stuff that you threw out there. So, if anyone has, any further questions, now would be a good time. Otherwise, we can go ahead and wrap up here. All right. So yeah, we'll just do just a short closing meditation here. So we'll come back to our seated posture. Come back to our breath. Go through the sharing that happened here today. And my hope is that we can all be a little bit more in a place of being able to honor each other, free of judgment and bias. We can deepen our ability to see other people as individuals, unique individuals, with the freedom to be as they are. So we'll take a few more breaths just to cultivate those qualities within us: non-judgment, non-bias, acceptance, compassion. You can empty the breath you have, open the eyes.
Before you guys go, I recommend reading White Rage. That's all.
Who's the author?
It's a woman. I think her name is Carol. Let me look. Yeah, Carol. I forget her last name. White Rage. Right. Coming right up at you. Carol Anderson.
Cool. White Rage.
White Rage by Carol Anderson. And it really gives you an in-depth look at the history of the Civil War and how it's just, yeah. That's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, Nathan, man, thanks for your time and your honesty and sharing with us today. And then I just want to let you know personally, man, that like I just am really grateful for our friendship and everything that we've experienced together and all the learning I've gotten to do. I've had from you musically, personally, all the experiences we've shared, man. Going beyond
Right.
something racial, it's like we have a special friendship, and I appreciate it, man. So
Man, Deezy, it's all one Deezy under one D's.
we've been through a lot, man. We've seen a lot.
Absolutely. And we gonna see some more.
Yep. We're only getting started. Cool. Well, yeah. So, for those who are watching this on YouTube after, I'm going to provide links to Nathan's music. I really encourage you to check out his stuff. Nathan is one of the most prolific and creative artists that I know. We've got music together. He's got a whole catalog different vibes and sounds that he's been creating over the years. So if you really want to hear and feel the spirit of Nathan, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Probably.
As you always say, man, the music speaks louder than words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's all said and done, yep. Mm-hmm.
So thank you again. Thanks to everyone who has tuned in and watched. And yeah, let's keep shifting the culture.
All right, y'all. One love.
Take care.
Mm-hmm.